Mr. LaPierre, that's the point. The criminals won't go to purchase the guns because there'll be a background check. We'll stop them from the original purchase. You missed that point completely. And I think it's basic.
Senator, I think you missed it.
Let there be order.
I think you're missing it. If you don't prosecute, you're not stopping them.
I'll give you an opportunity.
Please wait, everybody, for a moment. As I said earlier, there will be order in the committee room. Senator Durbin. And then
I'm going to give you a chance. But let me just say at the outset, Captain Kelly, thank you. Thank you for bringing that wonderful, brave wife of yours today to remind us what victims suffer from gun violence, what a heroic figure she is, and what a great pillar of strength you are to stand by her during this entire ordeal and her rehabilitation. We're so proud of her and of you.
Thank you.
And I say with some regret, there should have been a hearing just like this right after your wife, one of our own, a member of Congress, was shot point blank in the face at a town meeting in Tucson, Arizona. I'm sorry it's taken 2 years for us to convene this hearing, but it took Newtown, Connecticut to finally bring us to our senses and to open this national conversation. But I hope that you will extend to her our best wishes, our love, and our support for what she is doing today and what she has meant to all of us for this long period of time. I also want to say a word about an incident. There was a young lady from Chicago, Illinois, 15 years old. She attended the University prep school in Chicago. She was an honor student and a majorette, and she marched in the inaugural parade last week here in Chicago. It was a highlight of her young 15-year-old life. Yesterday, in a rainstorm after school, she raced to a shelter. A gunman came in and shot her dead. Just a matter of days after the happiest day of her life, she's gone. A lot has been said about the city of Chicago, and I want to say a few words too. Our biggest problem in Chicago, according to Superintendent McCarthy, who came to Chicago from New York, we are awash in guns. The confiscation of guns per capita in Chicago is 6 times the number of New York City. We have guns everywhere, and some believe the solution to this is more guns. I disagree. When you take a look at where these guns come from, 25% plus are sold in the surrounding towns around the city of Chicago, not in this city. And you look over the last 10 or 12 years, of the 50,000 guns confiscated in crimes, almost 1 out of 10 crime guns in Chicago came to that city from Mississippi. Mississippi. Why? Because the background checks there, the gun dealers there, are a lot easier than they are in other places. And they end up selling these guns in volume, and they come up the interstate and kill wantonly on the way. Here's the basics. I think we all agree, I hope we all agree, that the Supreme Court decision in Heller said we can have reasonable limitations on a Second Amendment right in terms of the type of weapon or the people who own them and the background checks on those people. It's something we desperately need to do. But we know now that 40% of the sales are not going through the background checks. That's a huge problem. It's created this abundance of weapons that are available. And the straw purchasers, I salute the chairman for addressing this issue on straw purchasers. It's one of the worst situations in our state and in the city of Chicago. I can point to one gun store in Riverdale, Illinois, that accounts for more than 20% of the crime guns in Chicago. Straw purchasers buy the guns there, and they end up in the hands of criminals in the city of Chicago. We got to put an end to this. Chairman, thank you for your bill. And let me ask, I'm going to ask a question here of some of the panelists. Mr. LaPierre, I run into some of your members in Illinois, and here's what they tell me. Senator, you don't get the Second Amendment. Your NRA members say you just don't get it. It's not just about hunting. It's not just about sports. It's not just about shooting targets. It's not just about defending ourselves from criminals, as Ms. Trotter testified. We need the firepower and the ability to protect ourselves from our government, from the police if they knock on our doors, and we need to fight back. Do you agree with that point of view?
Senator, I think without any doubt, if you look at why our founding fathers put it there, they had lived under the tyranny of King George, and they wanted to make sure that these free people in this new country would never be subjugated again and have to live under tyranny. I also think, though, that what people all over the country fear today is being abandoned by their government. If a tornado hits, if a hurricane hits, if a riot occurs, that they're going to be out there alone, and the only way they're going to protect themselves in the cold, in the dark, when they're vulnerable, is with a firearm. And I think that indicates how relevant and essential the Second Amendment is in today's society to fundamental human survival.
Well, Chief Johnson, you've heard it. The belief of the NRA is the Second Amendment has to give American citizens the firepower to fight back against you, against our government.
That's not.
So how do you conduct your business in enforcing the law and not knowing what is behind that door?
I find it to be scary, creepy, and simply just not based on logic. Certainly law enforcement across this nation is well prepared to deal with any natural or man-made disaster that will occur. And frankly, I can't relate to that kind of thinking.
I can't either. And I can't relate to the need of that man in Aurora, Colorado, to have a 100-round drum, 100 cartridges. Professor Koppel, do you think that's necessary for hunting, sports, target practice, even self-defense?
It would be not legal for hunting in most states where there are limits on how many rounds you can have in a magazine. But as I think you've recognized, the Second Amendment is not primarily about hunting. What I've been talking about is what the Supreme Court said in District of Columbia versus Heller, which is what is the core of the Second Amendment, which is the firearms and their accessories, which are commonly owned by law-abiding people for legitimate purposes.
But let me
and those are not, and I'm not talking about 100-round magazines. I'm talking about what police officers carry, what citizens carry, semi-automatic handguns, typically with magazines of 11 to 19 rounds.
Those are police officers. Those are members of our military. So
no, they're not. They're not military men. They're not coming to attack people. They're coming to protect people, and they want to protect. And citizens protect themselves the same way that police officers do.
What I'm trying to get to is this: if you can rationalize a 100-round drum that someone can strap onto an semi-automatic weapon, as it did in Aurora, Colorado, and turn it loose, killing dozens of people there, and saving lives only because it jammed, then you certainly ought to object to the laws that have been on the books for 80 years about machine guns. Why aren't they allowed under the Second Amendment?
Because, according to Heller, because they are not commonly used by law-abiding citizens for legitimate purposes.
But 100-round magazines are?
You're the one who wants to talk about 100-round magazines, and thank goodness.
I sure do.
Thank goodness he had a piece of junk like that jammed instead of something better made where he could have killed more people with it.
Well, that's what it's all about then?
It's about saving lives. It's about saving lives with ordinary magazines. 100-round magazines are novelties that are not used by police officers or hunters or most other people. But what you're talking about banning, Senator, is normal magazines.
Tell us about the lives that were saved in Tucson and what it had to do with magazines.
The shooter in Tucson showed up with two 33-round magazines, one which was in his 9mm. He unloaded the contents of that magazine in 15 seconds, very quickly. It all happened very, very fast. The first bullet went into Gabby's head. Bullet number 13 went into a 9-year-old girl named Christina Taylor Greene, who was very interested in democracy and our government, and really deserved a full life committed to advancing those ideas. If he had a 10-round magazine, well, let me back up. When he tried to reload one 33-round magazine with another 33-round magazine, he dropped it. And a woman named Patricia Maish grabbed it, and it gave bystanders a time to tackle him. I contend if that same thing happened when he was trying to reload one 10-round magazine with another 10-round magazine, meaning he did not have access to a high-capacity magazine, and the same thing happened, Christina Taylor Greene would be alive today. I certainly am willing to give up my right to own a high-capacity magazine to bring that young woman back, that young girl. Now let me continue with what happened that day. In that 15 seconds, or actually with the first shot, a man ran out of Walgreens, a good guy with a gun, with the intent to do the right thing, an armed citizen. He admits that he came within about a half a second of shooting the man who tackled Jared Loughner and nearly killing him. I mean, we almost had this horrific mass murder followed up with a horrific accident. The horrific mass murder because of the high-capacity magazine, and the horrific accident because of the armed person there who, with good intention, wanted to end something that was going really bad.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator